project management terms and concepts by phase. So it's a topic that's relevant because it relates concepts. It exposes you to terms and terminologies that are relevant to project delivery by different phases of the delivery. Okay, so I will just go to the initiation phase. Some of these terminologies are used to describe documents. Some of the terminologies are used to describe activities. Some of these terminologies are used to describe scenarios. So understand that project delivery terminologies could entail terminologies that are used to describe documentations, that are used to also describe scenarios or concepts, and that are used to also describe as we deliver projects, they are used to describe those different activities really that plays out in project delivery. So understand it from that perspective first, so that when I begin to talk about some of these terminologies, it would all add up. Now, in initiation phase, you most likely would find terminologies like stakeholder analysis, stakeholder map, RACI metrics, project board, Scrum values, Scrum rules, value proposition, Moscow, products roadmap, program, projects, risk appetite, project objective, user persona, customer journey map, feasibility studies. I would explain some of these concepts. I know that some of them are known to you already in terms of you've heard of these concepts or you've heard of these terms or terminologies, but you may not necessarily have given it a deeper thought in terms of how it relates to project delivery. So for instance, business case, it's a documentation. It's used to describe a documentation, like I mentioned earlier. That some of these terms can be used to describe documentation. So business case is used to describe documentation that justifies the project. So it just provides a justification for the project. So it's a documentation that enables a stakeholder, provide relevant justification for delivering this project. So you need to do some cost-based analysis, because justification in what sense, if you would ask, justification in terms of letting the client know that this project is viable, letting the client know that this project is profitable. So with all those justifications you are providing, the business case document is the right tool to use. Now, stakeholder analysis. Anytime you hear stakeholder analysis, the first thing that should come to mind is the fact that we are talking about stakeholder. So who is a stakeholder? A stakeholder is basically someone or anyone who is interested in the project directly or indirectly, who is affected by the outcome of the project directly or indirectly. So stakeholder analysis is just the ability for you to identify in any project you're dealing with, to identify who is interested in the project, who is vested or who is impacted by the project. So a customer is impacted by the outcome of the project, because a customer would be able to, in the example I gave earlier, the customer will be able to place order online. So they are impacted by the output of the project. If the client, the coffee shop owner himself, or himself in this example I've provided, is also a stakeholder, because he is the one who provides the resources for delivering this project. So the client is a stakeholder. So identifying these different categories of stakeholders, including the project team, who are also impacted by the project, because of course they drive the project, the processes of delivering this output for the client. So all this you need to then identify by way of analysis who is, in terms of interest and influence. That's where stakeholder mapping also comes, because you're looking at who is interested and who is invested. So there's what we call interest influence map. It's a popular map used to describe stakeholder metrics or stakeholder mapping or stakeholder analysis. So these terms are related. So when you hear stakeholder analysis, your ability to identify the different stakeholders and their level of interest and influence in the project. So once you have that figured out using the metric, the stakeholder metrics, the interest and influence metrics, or the power interest metrics as we have them, then you are good to go. Okay, so these are just terminologies that are used to describe stakeholder identification and then mapping them to their right level of interest or influence. Now, we have what we call RISI metrics, just used to describe different roles per time in a project, and then who is doing what, who should be informed, who should be accountable, who should be responsible, as the case may be. We have the project board. In project delivery, we have what we call project board. Project board is basically an entity that defines or that has the power to sign off on key milestones. So the project board largely has the authority to sign off on documents. Project board, okay, so I give an instance using the RISI metrics. The project board, sometimes they see there, those guys with controls, those guys you need to consult, because of course the C describes control. It describes people that has control that you must consult. So if I give an example, a clear example for your understanding now, I would say, just take it that we have this project to be delivered for this coffee shop owner who wants to go online. All right. Now, in that example, this coffee shop owner wants to clearly get online and reach more customers, right, online, and expand his coffee shop, to a global stage. Now, our company, XYZ company, now comes in to say, oh, we want to build this website for this company, and we now set up, engage the clients, get all the requirements and everything, and we are good to go. We now set up a project team. Once we set up a project team to deliver this project work, the organization would definitely need to set up a board, a project board, that would be inclusive of key relevant players or key and strategic team members, including subject matter experts. Sometimes the project board is made up of subject matter experts, is made up of C-level managers. So you'd find that within our organization, we could have a very top level manager who is overseeing that project board, who has the say in terms of what we are doing. All the documentation has to be signed off by this board. The board could be made up of 3 persons, 4 persons. There's no defined number of persons that could make up a board. And the board could include, within our organization, we could have a high-ranking team member, and then 1 team member from the perspective, from the client's domain. We could have 1 team member as a member of the board, which is not a cost as well. So the idea of a board is basically that team of people that oversee the different projects. Now we have what we call Scrum values. Scrum values are basically the values that guides you as a Scrum professional. So there are certain values that are called Scrum values that you must imbibe, that you have to have, okay, that describes you, all right, in terms of delivery, in terms of when dealing with a Scrum project, there are certain values that must describe you. We're talking about respect. We're talking about courage. All right. We're talking about focus. So these are some of the values that must describe you, your personality as a Scrum professional in delivering a project, a Scrum project. We also have Scrum roles. Scrum roles are basically, product owners, Scrum masters, developers. These are Scrum roles. Okay, so that's also a term used in Scrum. So we have terms like sprints. So sprints, these are, of course, duration of time that activities would be deployed. All right, so sprint 0, sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, all those sprints basically is just a duration of 2 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, where activities would, be put into delivering certain work items within Scrum. Value proposition, these are unique product benefits. So more like you proposing the value of this product. What is this product bringing to the table? What's the unique nature? Why do we go into this project? What are we trying to solve? What problem are we trying to solve? So the uniqueness of any product is to the tune of the value proposition. Okay, so Moscow is also a term used to describe must-haves, should-haves, could-haves, and won't-have. So these are prioritization techniques. That's why it's called feature prioritization. These are prioritization technique. When you want to prioritize activities or tasks in project delivery, we have priorities that you must identify as must-haves. We have other priorities, other tasks or activities that you must prioritize as should-haves. We have others that you must prioritize as could-haves, and we have others that you must prioritize as won't-haves. So these are some of the ideas or concepts around this. So we have what we call also product roadmap. Product roadmap in project delivery is just basically a team highlighting what they intend to do at different points. So you are identifying the different timelines. Oh, we need to do this in week 1. We need to do this in week 2. We need to do that in week 3. The project should end in week 4. So in week 1, we have identified all the tasks. This particular task in week 1, we need to do it between the first day and the second day, just providing a timeline and milestones. At the end of the 4th week, we need to review and be done with whatever we have done, just providing a timeline and milestone. So it's pretty much that straight. For products, for projects and programs as a concept, of course, programs are sets of projects where project is just a single single effort. Where you have program we are talking about collections of projects. We have what we call risk appetite as well. Risk appetite in project management is just your willingness to accept risk or not to accept risk. So your risk appetite, the level of the risk appetite to determine how much risk you can take. If you do not have so much of the risk appetite as a project manager, you would not want to take as much risk. But if there are certain project managers that have risk appetite, very good, very high risk appetite. So they're able to take even bigger risks, and they're able to, of course, come up with mitigation plans. Because the truth is, believe it or not, every project comes with risk. So the rates or the level of acceptance of the degree of the risk that you have identified is left to the appetite of risk per time for that project. Okay, so and of course, risks are basically, by definition, the risks are basically situations or events that potentially impact a project that could invalidate or make the project not to succeed. All right, so events in the future that had not yet occurred. So we consider them as risk because we must identify them. We must begin to think of what situation, what events could potentially impact this project. So that's why they are called risks. And when they happen, we call them issues. This is planning phase, and some of the relevant terms and concepts that you could find in planning stage. Terminologies that are relevant to the planning stage, and I had highlighted them here, including project plan up until user stories and increments on this list. Now, what is a project plan? Like I've explained, anytime you hear project plan, this is just the roadmap of what you intend to do. Now, when you hear stage plan is just simply what plan do you have for this particular stage? Oh, in planning stage, this is our plan for planning stage. In execution phase, this is our plan for execution. In initiation phase, this is our plan. This is what we intend to do. These are the activities we intend to carry out, and these are the timelines for carrying out these activities. So stage plan is just relative to the different stages. However, project plan is a comprehensive plan covering all the stages of the project delivery. Now we have team plan. So this is just team assignment of tasks and activities. So how do we intend to organize the internal team that would be delivering this project. So anytime you hear team plan, it just relates to organizing a team, how the team would engage, or how, just internal plan around team engagement. We have what we call product backlog. Product backlogs, these are ordered list of, work items from the product owner perspective. So they are not already looked into. They are just when the product owner goes out there, engages the client, receives the information. Oh, the client is saying they want to do this, they want to do that. The product owner comes back, highlights everything the client is saying they want to achieve in the project, just highlights them in what we call product backlog. So these are work items that are not yet defined. All right. So it's just product tasks that needs to be worked on. Okay, from the product owner perspective. Sprint backlog, on the other hand, by the time the sprint backlog is created, it's typically created, after what we call grooming session. Okay, grooming session, we just come together as a team. When the product owner had engaged the client, oh, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do. Then the product owner comes back, reaches out to the project team and says, oh, this is what the client is saying we should do. Then the team would begin to break down these tasks, everything into smaller bits, into clear and manageable tasks. So we can now say, oh, the product owner, the client is saying we should build an account feature. Okay, then the team comes together and say, okay, what should constitute an account feature? Oh, sign in, sign out. Oh, highlighting that in the sprint backlog, and then the development team will be, assisting in what we call estimation. Oh, to create a sign-in authentication process that would take us 3 hours. Then you estimate effort. That's what we call effort estimation. So you estimate the effort. And by the time you estimate the effort, you now move all the items that have been prioritized, estimated, identified in their smallest bits of tasks that needs to go into the works, highlight all of them into what we call sprint backlog. So that's why it's called tasks for sprint. Definition of done. So once you're done, so you move into a sprint. A sprint, like I mentioned earlier, is duration of period like 2 to 4 weeks of actual delivery of the sprint backlog items, actual delivery of tasks highlighted in the sprint backlog items. So usually 2 to 4 weeks duration. Now, the definition of done defines the acceptability of the outcome of a sprint. So the outcome of a sprint must meet what we call definition of done. It must meet the completion criteria before we can say, oh, this sprint is complete. This sprint was successful. All right. So it must meet the definition of done. So definition of done, or DOD, like otherwise called, is just a completion criteria. We also have what we call acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria is very, very easy because that one speaks to the acceptability. Now, for a product outcome or for a sprint outcome to not meet the definition of done, it means that the acceptance criteria was not met. So in fact, the measuring, the way we know that the outcome of the sprint did not meet the definition of done is if it does not meet the acceptance criteria. That once it does not meet acceptance criteria, then we just conclude by saying this does not meet the definition of done, because the definition of done, in line with the acceptance criteria, the system must be able to allow customers to be able to click a button. But the customer is not able to click the button at the end of the project. So it doesn't meet the acceptance criteria. The acceptance criteria is that I should be able to click. And this button should bring up or pop up, a space where a form where I should fill my username, my password, my other credentials. But I'm clicking and nothing is popping up. So it does not meet the acceptance criteria. Therefore, it does not meet the definition of done. So something needs to be done. So we need to go back into the works and fix. WBS is what we call work breakdown structure. That's the acronym WBS. So anytime you hear WBS, is the same as work breakdown structure. So it just highlights the different work items to be done. It breaks them down into manageable bits. Now, the difference between a work breakdown structure and sprint backlog is the fact that you don't basically prioritize WBS. Secondly, you don't estimate the effort of a WBS. You don't attach time of delivery to it. You also do not attach timeline in terms of, oh, I intend to deliver this work item on XYZ day. No, you don't attach such. But in your sprint backlog, you have timelines. So once you have all those, you have priorities for your sprint backlog, you must have, prioritized it in line with what you intend to do. And then by the time it moves into sprint, it is believed that it should be completed by the end of that sprint. So it has its timeline. So, but WBS just gives you a hierarchy of deliverables. It just helps to break down work items into manageable bits. And the core purpose for which you have a WBS is just because it gives you an overview. So you have an understanding of what to be done in this project in the tiniest bits. So you're able to break down all the work activities, in the tiniest bit. So you have clarity of what is to be done. We have release plan. Release plan is just release, as the word is used in IT. Release plan is, what plan do I have in bringing this this particular project into limelight, in bringing it into use at the end of the day. So this is a delivery timeline when we intend to start using it. So the release plan, what we intend to do, the plan we have for rolling this project out. Because at the end of the project, it's expected that a product must have been given birth to. So what's the delivery? When do we intend to start using this product? So that's basically release plan. Risk register is another word, is another phrase used. Risk, of course, we had discussed that. Risk, just speaking to the event or situation that could potentially impact the project. So risk register, anytime you hear risk register, it just speaks to the log of the risks. As you identify each risks, you are documenting it in a register form. You could document in Excel, you could document in MS Word, you could document, using any tool you might want to, provided that it's organized. You have the risk title, you have the risk number, you have the risk code, you have the potential impact of the risk, you have the risk assessment score, you have the mitigation plan, a lot of parameters that could actually, and the likelihood of the risk there, that a lot of parameters that could largely play out that you could identify in your risk log are there available. Now we have what we call quality criteria. Quality criteria, these are just quality checks. Quality criteria, more like the acceptance criteria. These are acceptance criteria that defines the quality of the project. So the project has to meet certain quality. You need that this project is qualitative. It must pass through acceptance criteria. The project must pass through series of acceptance criteria, must meet the definition of done for you to say, it had met the quality criteria. Communication plan. This is a documentation largely used to document the communication strategy amongst project team members. How do I intend to engage XYZ? How do I intend to, what's the frequency of communicating? What's the channel of communicating? Defining the stakeholders, their communication needs, so that you can communicate right in the project is very, very key. So that's basically what it is. Information flow, capacity planning, team bandwidth. So capacity planning, team bandwidth, this is just basically assessing the capacity of team members and understanding where to channel what energy to. So you know where to push more work to. Okay, so you know each team member's capacity and you know how to assign roles across board per time to be able to manage the capacity of the team per time. So we have what we call estimation effort. So I've just explained this earlier, saying that when talking about the sprints backlogs, so developers come and say, I'm able to deliver this in 2 hours. I'm able to do this in 3 hours. So that's estimation. So you're estimating the effort you would put into delivering a particular task. So anytime you hear effort estimation, there are a lot of the estimation efforts. So we have different effort estimation techniques. All right. You could use, for instance, the planning poker. In fact, planning poker is one of the popular estimation efforts technique. We have just basic timing, use of timelines, or use of hours, You can use hours to estimate efforts and all. So it's just to, like the word entail, estimate the effort of delivery, of any work items identified by the project. So we also have what we call epic. Epic, largely used in Scrum. So epic are just is a large story. Story, by story I mean user stories. So user stories, these are usable representation of needs of users needs. Oh, as a user, I want to be able to do this so that I can achieve that. So it's basically highlighting the different work activities that are related. So when you hear epic in delivering projects, so work items that are related, you highlight them, similar as a similar user stories, and then highlight them under one epic. Now, in execution phase, we have a number of terms and terminologies. Time boxing. Time boxing is just a fixed time limit. For instance, the daily Scrum meeting should not exceed 15 minutes. That's the typical time box for it. So a daily Scrum meeting should be a 15-minute time-boxed meeting. So anytime you hear time box, that's what we are talking about. Product increment. Product increment, these are some of the work. When you hear product increment, remember I explained that increments are output of a successful sprint that had met the definition of done. Now, when you have a collection of increments at the end of the day, at the end of different sprints, you can sum them up and refer to them as product increments. So we have also what we call Kanban or Scrum board. Kanban board or Scrum board. We're just looking at how you have Trello board that has to do, doing, and done. So a Kanban board also within Agile is just a board that describes what you are doing, what you intend to do as to do, what you are currently doing, and then what you have done. So it's just a simple board. So anytime you hear Kanban board, it's just visual tracker of work activities, basically. So product demo. Product demo is basically where you come to describe what you have done, or where you come to show what you have worked on during the course of the sprint. So at the end of each sprint, there's what we call sprint review sessions or demo sessions. So you come as a development team, you come and describe or show us what you have achieved during the course of that sprint, describing it in visual form. Oh, this is what I've done, and this is what I've achieved, and we are good. Okay, so that's what we mean by product demo. So velocity, these are just KPIs for measuring work progress in Agile. KPIs for measuring work progress. So you see, velocity are just work completed. It's just used to measure work completed, helping you to understand, oh, this is what we started out doing, this is what we have achieved. It just shows you work completed. So we have also what we call burn down charts and burn up charts. Burn down charts are what is remaining. So you just see a chart showing you what work items are remaining in the backlog to be worked on, or remaining during the course of a sprint to be completed. So during a sprint, there's actually a chart that pops up that the Scrum Masters update that shows, oh, this is what is left. Each day we work and deliver on the project in that sprint, the burn down chart begins to burn. It continues to burn to, showing what is left undone, continues to. Then the burn up chart, as we continue to burn down the charts, decreasing what is left undone, the burn up chart will continue to increase to show that, oh, this is what we have completed. This is what we have achieved. So as you continue to work, your objective would be to burn down charts and burn up charts, all right, to show remaining work items and to show that they are actually decreasing, and then to ensure that what you have worked on is actually increasing as well. Now, anytime you hear impediments in a project environment, we are just talking about obstacles. So you hear this often when development team are working. So they say, oh, there's an obstacle, there's an impediment or there are bugs. So you just hear things like, oh, there are bugs in this project, or there are impediments. All right.